Welcome to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus is to provide physical, mental, spiritual info and positive vibes to help you endure and adapt. We'll be bringing you experts to provide strategies to handle stress and boost your immunity.
Welcome all to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus and goal is to provide physical, mental, and spiritual info and major positive vibes to help us endure and adapt and create a new normal in these pretty stressful times. I have with us today one of my dearest and closest friends. Olga Bloch is a marriage and family therapist, and I'm going to let her expand a little bit about what she does. And I felt that it was very important for us and for me especially. I'm handling my own emotional well-being. I'm dealing with my children's emotional well-being. All of this, the team here at Pain Arthritis Relief Center, everybody is stressed and everybody's scared. So I felt I wanted to be able to share some useful tactics and understanding of how we can deal with these challenging times. So, Olga, if you can first just tell us what do you do?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and for having me on this platform to hopefully help so many people during these really uncertain times. I'm really grateful to be here. So what I do is, yes, by nature, I am a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, but my specific training is as an experiential therapist. And I also do somatically based therapy, and I also work with trauma. So I'm very well versed in these three different categories as a way to help people feel their feelings more fully, gain an understanding of their relationship with their bodies, and also have a more authentic and clear relationship, not only with themselves, but with their lives in general. I also work with couples utilizing similar techniques as a way to help not only the communication, but the trust and to repair old injuries, as a way to help the couples not only feel more connected, but to stabilize their relationship as well. So that's a little bit about what I do.
That was so. I'm summarizing that as you said, somatic therapy, trauma,
Yes.
and experiential therapy.
Yes.
Would you be able to expand on those a little bit? Could you
Sure.
share with us really what those are, what each one of those are? So again, it was experiential therapy, somatic therapy, and dealing with trauma. And would you consider, before you go into that, would you consider what's happening now trauma,
Yes.
like in our society?
Absolutely. So trauma can be defined as anything beyond what our nervous system can bear. So oftentimes people have the belief that trauma has to do with going to war or something intensely like rape or child abuse, which those things are traumatic in and of themselves. But we can experience trauma in a variety of different ways when our nervous systems doesn't feel adept to be able to deal with what we're facing in the moment. So anything that feels overwhelming for an extensive period of time can cause trauma to our nervous system and also to our belief system. Some signs of trauma can be hypervigilance, can be difficulty relaxing, can be difficulty with relationships, viewing the world in a different way, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, overeating, self-injurious behaviors. So there is a whole myriad of behaviors that we begin to engage in as a way to self-soothe when we feel like we can't get out of the situation that we face. So definitely this is a traumatic life situation. However, how people choose to deal with it becomes critically and vitally important in terms of not only regulating themselves, but learning how to regulate each other.
That's awesome. So really what I want to provide for you listeners through this conversation and dialogue is really to have that choice because we all have a choice on how we are going to respond to this outside trauma and then what's on the inside as well. So can you just share a little bit about what somatic therapy is and how that relates to what I'm thinking in my mind or feeling in my body?
Sure. So somatic therapy is what you notice in your body as you're sharing your narrative. So in being more aware of what are physical and body sensations while you're speaking is vitally important to help individuals slow down, to become more aware of their breathing, to actually take up space. And what I mean by that is, for the most part, um, when we go through life circumstances, whether it be in our childhood or in our adulthood, we can sometimes have experiences that grip us and our bodies become tight. And that tightness usually has to do with a feeling of wanting to disappear or to not feel our feelings or to survive this certain moment. And so that gripping feeling oftentimes shunts our breath, and it also shunts our capacity to think of solutions, and it keeps us from being in the present moment. So somatic therapies are a way to help you expand your relationship with your body in the moment, so you can feel more trusting, so you can breathe deeper and feel more embodied inside yourself. Because ultimately that feeling of being gripped becomes a constant way of being, and we begin to live our lives from that perspective of constantly trying to survive or trying to disappear or trying to cause less problems or taking on other people's problems so then we don't face our own feelings. So that gripping feeling becomes really pervasive in terms of lots of different areas of your life. And a lot of people don't notice that that is actually happening. So the key in developing a somatic relationship with your feelings is to help you actually feel more tethered inside yourself.
And I've experienced this work and just through our friendship and relationship and in other means. And I never realized that I could actually connect with what I feel on the inside until the last couple of years. And it's had a profound impact on all of my relationships, especially the one with myself. So any kinds of these somatic therapies are cool. And then, so what about, I'm slowing my breath,
Sure.
being more present with you, because you're definitely have been a spark for me to be more present in all of my relationships. So I'm going to continue to thank you and praise
Sure.
to praise you. Experiential therapy. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Sure. Experiential therapy is, somatic is one branch of an experiential therapy experience. But there's others. We have 7 channels through which we experience our lives. And these 7 channels are sight, hearing, feeling, like feeling our emotions, but there's also sensations, movement, imagination, and energy, right? So those are the 7. We absorb our lives through these 7 channels. And so as an experiential therapist, when people are sharing whatever it is that they're talking about, I'm constantly tracking which one of these channels are open and fluid and which ones are closed, which ones are dismissed, which ones are not accessible to people. And so in that lack of accessibility, people begin to shrink in their lives, and their experience of what they're actually living becomes smaller, which compromises their capacity to not only look for the solutions or look at the other side of what they're experiencing, but also keeps them stuck in the same pattern. And it's not necessarily about changing your thinking, but it's much more about becoming present to your relationship to what you're talking about.
That's awesome. And I'm so intrigued by this stuff, and I'm a sponge with it. So hopefully you guys and gals listening out there, that this does create a spark. And really, I want to bring this and pivot this a little bit into a real life experience. And if you're okay with it, I'd like to share something that happened to me the other day. So as most of you know that are out there, there are hours changed with, and things are happening every day, but there are hours when people over the age of 60, or at least elderly people, because they're more at risk for getting this virus and having dangerous consequences, where there are limited hours when they can go to the grocery store. I have, I know a lot of people above 60. My parents are in their late 70s, early 80s. So I went to Whole Foods, and this is earlier last week, and I showed up at like 7:30, and there were bouncers basically at Whole Foods IDing people, and they were only allowing 60 and above, 60 years old and above, could go in from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. So all of us younger people were lining up outside, and as I'm watching this occur, and I'm starting to feel it again now, where I literally got overwhelmed with like this immense, intense feeling of just sadness. And I wasn't even like thinking about my parents or some of my friends. That I have good friends that are like 65, they're super healthy. And I started welling up, and of course I can't show that in public. So I was like hiding behind my sunglasses and my face, but I literally almost just broke down and cried. And I'm sure a lot of you out there are experiencing feelings like this that we've never had. And it was just giant. It was so much bigger than me, or so much bigger than my immediate circle and my sphere of influence of people that I'm connected to. So I wanted to see if we could talk a little bit about, or tactically, you can give some of our listeners some really bullet points or info points, something useful that they can take with them. Because, we could talk for hours on this stuff, but I'd love to be able to share with our tribe, so to speak, so they have some tools to take with them.
Oh, sure, that would be great.
Okay.
So there is the situation itself in terms of the virus and the dangers, which is stressful and very scary in and of itself. But I also believe that something that is co-occurrent is the uncertainty of how this will unfold. And that uncertainty, at least for me, feels incredibly scary, because for me, I like to plan my life and to continue to function and to do the things that I need to do. And so the uncertainty I find to be very gripping and really debilitating at times, in terms of just not only making decisions, but it zaps my energy in terms of capacity to function. I'm using up my energy in things that I normally would have never thought. At the end of the day, I'm feeling drained or tired or overwhelmed, and the news ongoing and these cases. So it's so pervasive that it becomes really all consuming. So a few things that I find to be helpful during these times is breathing. We can oftentimes forget to breathe deeply, and how to breathe deeply. There are apps that are free that can help with not only breath work, but with the timing of the inhalation and exhalation. That's vitally important.
Is there one count that you found useful?
So there's Breathe, I think, is an app that has like these very watery colors, like light blue. And I find that it's really helpful because it shows the in-breath and the out-breath. So for me, I found it really soothing. And one thing that I am aware of in terms of breathing is that the exhalation should be longer than the inhalation. That's a way of regulating your nervous system as a way to calm down. I also think that the part that's really important that can oftentimes be forgotten is the relationship to ourselves. I have 4 children, and so when I'm home, I find myself like being of service to them, whether it be cooking or cleaning or doing laundry and organizing and picking up after them and all these things. And so by the end of the day, I'm really depleted in terms of being of service, and I forget about taking care of myself. So becoming present to myself, I find that is something that's incredibly helpful, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes. And present to myself may be taking my dog out for a walk. It may be sitting quietly and journaling. In terms of whatever matters to you, or something that you're grateful for, or what you're appreciating, right? So this quiet time, whether even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes of connecting to yourself, I find to be immensely valuable, and also refueling instead of being of service to others, because for me it becomes quite easy to just forget to take care of myself. Something else that I also find incredibly helpful is in-home yoga. There's a free YouTube channel where teachers can offer yoga, um, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. That also ties in with the experiential part, the embodiment part, um, and it ties in with the breathing, and it reduces stress. So, and it's free, and you don't have to go outside of your house, right? So, and if all else fails, something else that I also find really helpful is that our sense of smell is the most powerful stimulant to create presence. When we smell something, we are automatically brought to the present moment. So you can go in your spice rack, and if you can get some cinnamon and sniff that, or maybe cloves, something that can just awaken you and bring you back to the present moment. I find that utilizing your sense of smell is a really great resource.
That's
So there's,
awesome. So
yeah,
very, very primal. So
yes.
what's cool is I literally have, I'll show you my bag here. Brought, this is all over my house, and my kids are laughing at me, but I have Palo Santo right here that I'm lighting in my
Look at
space
that.
to be present while I'm talking. So sense of smell, that's huge. That's awesome. A very primal sense that can bring us into the present moment, so we don't have to go into the past or into the future with worry.
Right.
And you also said movement, like yoga. Thankfully, I got a Peloton before all this went down, and I the other day I was cycling with my friends in Seattle, which was really cool.
Right,
So it
that's
had that connection, and then you also said breathing. And so we'll on this channel, on Immunity Community 2020, we're going to be having yoga teachers. We'll be teaching some classes and
awesome.
speaking. We have that lined up, and then we also have Andrew Bloch is going to be doing a true breath presentation. So it's another form of breathing that we use here within Pain Arthritis Relief Center. And there's tons of apps. So what I'm going to challenge our listeners to, and you can put a challenge forward too if you'd like after me, I would love for you to share any breathing apps that you have that have been helpful, any free yoga sites, or someone that we can connect with. And that's what this channel is really for, is to help us heal internally from the inside while we're stuck inside. So I want to thank you just for the work that you do in this world, and who you are, and who you are to me as such a dear friend and colleague. My life is different because you're in it. So I thank you, and Facebook people, if you want to learn more about Olga, she's at olgabloch.com, and she's just an amazing human, and really has a lot of good insight to take care of your own self on the inside. And that was another component, is really paying attention to yourself, taking that time aside. And so I urge all you listeners out there to put some of these into play, and then also, put on the thread underneath some of the tips and things you found useful. So thank you so much for sharing and allowing me to share with you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate being invited, and I so appreciate you and what you're doing for the community. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.